Welcome to the 6th weekly update on the Brisbane Channel, your independent source to stay in the loop on happenings and plans for Greater Brisbane without the political spin or corporate agendas. This week has been so packed with updates that I can't even fit them all into one video, and I have a big announcement about that at the end of this one. There's definitely a heap of stories that will affect us all, both now and into the future, no matter what part of Greater Brisbane you live in, plus more LGA specific updates than we've ever had in one video. Why do I do this to myself? This video is sponsored by local businesses Excel Psychology and YB Painting Services. Let's get updated. First up, there's been a lot revealed about what the situation is as we prepare for the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. While there's been a lot of talk about the $7.1 billion budget for building the venues and related infrastructure, one thing we haven't heard much about is the operating budget, which is a separate amount to actually run the games once the venues are built. When we put in the bid to host the Games, then Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk set the operating budget at $4.9 billion, which includes security, athlete and official transport, and event day logistics. Well, this week, the Brisbane 2032 President, Andrew Liveris, has addressed the International Olympics Committee, IOC members, in Milan and said that the operating budget would bear no resemblance to the amount put forward by Palaszczuk. He said the current Premier's plans to spread the events out across regional parts of Queensland has significantly increased costs, with events planned for Townsville, Rockhampton, Maryborough, Toowoomba, the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast beyond most of Greater Brisbane's LGAs. The operating costs, if they remain within budget, are covered by the IOC and commercial sponsorship. However, if they run over budget, it's taxpayers who will foot the difference. In the formal update to the committee, Liveris said, "We're working on the revised budget." Of course, I'll keep across it all here on the Brisbane Channel, so make sure you have all notifications enabled so that you also know when there's new posts in the community tabs, not just new videos. Most people are missing those posts. There's a heap of other things we learnt this week relating to the status of our 2032 plans, far too much to squeeze into this update. Perhaps I'll do a short video covering that in the next week or two. But talk of budgets brings us to the next update, which has the potential to impact every aspect of life in Greater Brisbane as well as the rest of the state over the next few years. International agency S&P Global Ratings has flagged that Queensland's credit rating could be downgraded in the coming years if current budget pressures continue. A quick explanation on what that actually means. These credit ratings are essentially a trust score for governments. They indicate how safe it is for investors to lend money to a state. The higher the rating, the lower the risk, and the cheaper it is for that government to borrow. Queensland currently holds a AA+ rating, just one click below the maximum AAA rating, meaning lenders see it as a strong and reliable borrower. But S&P has kept the state on a negative outlook, which is effectively a warning sign that a downgrade is possible if finances don't improve. The agency has pointed to large and ongoing budget deficits, rapidly rising debt, and growing day-to-day spending, particularly on wages and major infrastructure. Queensland's debt is projected to continue climbing over the rest of the decade, reducing the state's financial buffer if something unexpected goes wrong. So what would a downgrade actually change? The main thing is it would make borrowing more expensive in the future, meaning more taxpayer money goes toward interest repayments instead of things like hospitals, schools, or transport. It also leaves the state with less flexibility to respond to economic shocks, disasters, or cost blowouts. S&P has said that the rating can be maintained if the government demonstrates a credible plan to stabilise debt and improve budget balances over time. So a downgrade is possible but not inevitable. For now, Queensland remains a strong borrower by global standards. But this warning makes it clear that how the state manages spending and debt over the next few budgets really matters. Even a small increase in interest rates on billions of dollars of borrowing adds up fast. If you're looking for support with anxiety, depression, stress, ADHD, or relationship challenges, one sponsor of this video, Excel Psychology, may be what you're looking for. They're a warm, inclusive psychology practice based in Spring Hill, about 500 metres from Central Station. With a diverse team of clinical and registered psychologists, they'll help match you with the right psychologist for your needs, often with short wait times. They offer Medicare rebates with a mental health treatment plan and also support work cover and NDIS participants. participants. I have a video featuring some members of the Excel team giving tips on dealing with stress that you can check out here, and I'll put a link in the video description as well. New research out of the Queensland Children's Hospital is sounding a serious alarm about e-scooter safety for kids. A retrospective study published in the ANZ Journal of Surgery reviewed children aged 16 and under admitted to hospital after e-scooter crashes between 2009 and September last year. Over that period, 64 children were admitted with serious injuries, and between 2021 and 2024, the number of admissions more than doubled as scooters became more popular across the state. The focus of concern was head, face, and neck injuries. The most common injuries were fractures, including skull fractures in around 40% of cases. Falls accounted for over 70% of the crashes, with collisions, more than half of them involving motor vehicles, making up the rest. 1 in 4 children who were seriously injured needed intensive care, and 2/3 required surgery, including neurosurgery in nearly 30% of cases. Tragically, 2 children died from severe brain injuries sustained in crashes, and in both cases the child was not wearing a helmet. Of cases where helmet use was recorded, researchers also found that more than 60% of injured riders were not wearing one at the time of the accident. A significant share of the injured were under the legal minimum age, even though Queensland law only allows children aged 12 to 15 to ride e-scooters under adult supervision. Doctors and paediatric surgeons say the findings underscore the potentially life-altering consequences of serious head injuries, including long-term challenges with cognition, learning, communication, and mood, and stress that helmet use should be non-negotiable, even for short trips. Separate emergency department data from around Queensland show that e-scooter-related injury presentations have been climbing overall, with thousands of hospital visits and tens of thousands of injuries statewide over recent years. Head and facial trauma make up a large share of those admissions, particularly where riders were not helmeted. Safety experts and some health professionals have also suggested tightening age restrictions and strengthening enforcement around helmets and speed limits, arguing that existing rules are not keeping pace with the explosion in e-scooter use by young people. I'll put in a rare editorial comment here, as I've been out and about over the last couple of weeks and I've been observing the use of e-scooters around downtown Brisbane. What I noticed was the number of people riding without helmets far outnumbers the number with, and I also noticed a lot of people doubling, which is also illegal, often parents doubling with their children. There appears to be a distinct lack of both awareness and enforcement of the laws. One thing the Brisbane Channel will be waiting to see is the results of the state parliamentary inquiry into e-mobility safety and use, which is due to be tabled by the 30th of March. That could lead to some major changes in how we use e-mobility devices across Greater Brisbane and the rest of the state, or if they continue to be illegal at all. Of course, the housing shortage is something that concerns many locals across Greater Brisbane, and this week the state government has announced its land activation program, which will release underutilised land held by the government for new housing. The first piece of land to be released is in Banyo, on a site that was formerly an Energex depot, but that has been remediated and has sat vacant for years, despite being close to public transport, shops and schools. As part of the program, developers can also approach the government if they identify government-owned land that could be eligible and put in an application for it to be released under the program. While more housing supply is a positive thing, not everyone's on board with this approach. Amy McVie from the Queensland Council of Social Service said it's very troubling that there's no requirement for social and affordable homes, especially with the social housing register at record highs. Critics say identifying land is positive, but without affordability conditions, the benefits are likely to flow largely to private developers. Shadow Housing Minister Megan Scanlon called the plan reckless for selling off state land without delivering homes for those who need them most. In response to these criticisms, Deputy Premier Jared Blay has said, "The best thing we can do for the housing crisis in Queensland is supply, supply, supply. You need to partner with the market to deliver the supply, and the more you mandate, the less houses you get built." Where do you think the balance lies? Let me know in the comments. As I mentioned earlier, we have a heap of LGA-specific updates, so let's get to those now, starting in Brisbane. We mentioned in the last update video that the completed Riverwalk was set to open early this month, and that happened on Tuesday. This is what $42 million and 3 years gets you. Brisbane City Council contributed $22 million toward the build, with developers Dexus footing the rest. If you live in Brisbane, here's an opportunity for you to help shape the city. Council is calling on residents to give their feedback on a bunch of ideas for legacy outcomes from the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Part of their contract with the IOC is to have a legacy plan, and Brisbane's will focus on outcomes that accelerate Brisbane's economy, transport, lifestyle and community, deliver sustainable benefits before and long after the Games, extend beyond venues to ensure a more equitable Brisbane, and reflect what makes Brisbane unique while strengthening the city's global identity. Almost 60 ideas have been put forward by local students, businesses and leaders on a wide range of changes to our city, including mobilising volunteers to clean up the river, more legal street art walls, a more connected transport system, and making Brisbane the most accessible adventure location in the world. You can vote for the ideas you would like to support by visiting Brisbane City Council's Making Our Mark website, which I've linked in the video description. Before I move on to the next Brisbane update, a quick shout out to the other sponsor of this video, YB Painting Services. I recently had a subscriber tell me they booked a job with them and were blown away by the service. They recently won 2 first and 3 second place awards in 5 different categories of the Master Painters Australia Queensland Awards for 2025. And when you see their professionalism and the quality of their workmanship, it's no surprise. With fixed pricing and a 5-year warranty on all their work, you can be sure there'll be no unpleasant surprises. Claim your 10% discount by scanning this QR code or the link in the video description. A while back we had an update where council were proposing new laws around short-term accommodation, things like renting out your place through Airbnb or stays. The new laws would require people to obtain a permit before renting out a property. They would also need a contact person to respond to complaints, and the operator would need to hold public liability insurance for the duration of any stays. The proposed laws would start on the 1st of July. You can have your say on the proposed laws with consultation closing on the 16th of February. I've put a link with details of the law and another way you can submit your feedback in the video description. Brisbane residents may soon get their green waste turned into electricity. After the introduction of universal green bins across Brisbane, the city has seen a marked increase in green waste collected. From July to December last year, over 30,000 tonnes of green waste was recycled, a 25% increase on the same period the previous year. To ensure the long-term sustainability of our green waste processing, especially as our population continues to grow, a panel of 5 local operators has been locked in with an agreement that secures processing for up to 20 years. One of the operators is building a new gasification plant that will be able to turn green waste into hydrogen, electricity and biochar, a type of charcoal used for compost or soil products, once complete. While a long-term agreement may sound good in theory, what happens when things don't go so well? This week, Brisbane's Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner admitted in a council meeting that he was not satisfied with Veolia, the contractor currently engaged to collect Brisbane's household waste, due to them consistently failing to collect bins in multiple areas. They are currently 8 years into a 16-year contract with council. While Schrinner says the figure is roughly 1% of bins not being collected, council's opposition leader Jared Cassidy has pointed to a
225% increase in misbin collections for your general waste, 180% increase in missed yellow bins, and a 316% increase in missed green bins.
The final update for the Brisbane LGA is that the city has locked in hosting of 10 matches during the 2027 Men's Rugby World Cup, including the Wallabies versus Chile, Argentina versus Canada, France versus Japan, South Africa versus Georgia, and Scotland versus Portugal pool matches, as well as 2 round of 16 matches and 2 quarterfinals. Logan, your turn. Probably one of the biggest and most lingering issues in Logan is the updated flood maps that have seen widespread community outrage after properties that have never seen flooding were assigned risk profiles that pose the potential to significantly increase insurance premiums, with some reporting increases up to 600%. The changes have also led to homeowners' applications for simple changes such as adding a carport or shed being rejected. Community outcry led to Mayor John Raven promising to re-evaluate the mapping, and now things have gone up a level, with Deputy Premier and Planning Minister Jared Blay announcing the state government would be reviewing the state planning policy that guides the flood risk assessments. This is clearly an issue many Logan residents are passionate about, with the Logan Flood Mapping Action Group now sitting at over 7,000 members. The Mayor has said that a consultant was expected to be appointed shortly to conduct an independent review of the Albert and Logan River flood study, and they are also planning upgrades to Council's flood mapping portal and property search tools. Raven and Blay have agreed to work together to fix the current flood mapping. Raven has also commissioned an independent review into the flood modelling plan that is expected to be completed later this year. No doubt you'll be hearing more about this in future updates. But while we're on Logan City Council, a state audit has exposed significant vulnerabilities in the council's IT systems. Before going into the issues identified, I will point out that the 2025 Financial Management Report into Logan City Council did acknowledge that the council had made substantial progress over the last 2 years. Despite that progress, there were still some issues, which included 173 accounts that belonged to former staff remaining active, including one who signed in after their employment had ceased. There were also inconsistent and even contradictory password rules. Another issue identified was financial approvals being made without proper authorization, which was something noted in previous reviews that remained unresolved. You probably have no idea how much work goes into producing these update videos. The research, fact-checking, planning, filming, editing, producing thumbnail images, a heap of things that go into each of these videos. You can say thanks for the effort by giving the video a thumbs up, sharing it online, buying me a coffee or two, or becoming a channel member, which gets you access to extra content and other perks. Thanks to you if you've done any of those things. But let's turn to some positive Logan updates. 10 school leavers planning to go on to university have each received a $5,000 bursary to help them as they begin their tertiary education. Congratulations to these Logan residents. The bursaries are funded by Logan City Council and local businesses. What may also be a positive thing for Logan is the establishment of a new youth justice school in Logan Central. Ohana Academy will be run by Ohana for Youth and will deliver highly specialised behavioural reform for high-risk young people on youth justice orders, with individual case management, mentoring, family support and parental coaching to help them re-engage with education, employment and the community. Let's head down to the Redlands next, where the welfare of endangered species and property developers is being weighed up by the federal government. A proposed 24-hectare residential estate called The Trails could deliver between 360 and 600 new homes, but there's an issue. The area is also habitat for koalas and greater gliders, both of which have been listed as endangered species for the last 4 years or so. Due to the presence of those species in the area, the development has been declared a controlled action under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, requiring federal assessment and public consultation. The developer has proposed 82.2 hectares of biodiversity offsets in Esk, over 100 kilometres from the site in the Somerset LGA. They also proposed a 100-metre wide wildlife corridor running through the development from east to west, in addition to fauna crossings and koala exclusion fencing. Community consultation closes at 5 p.m. on Monday the 9th of February, and I've put a link to the page that includes the documentation for that, just in case you watch this video in time and want to contribute your feedback. But development is not the only threat to our natural environment, and this week Redlands City Council's biosecurity team, in collaboration with Biosecurity Queensland, intercepted and seized prohibited and restricted plant species at a Mount Cotton property after the plants were discovered for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The plants seized were high-risk invasive aquatic weeds and cacti. It prompted authorities to issue a warning to always check the legal status of plants offered for sale online or by unverified sellers. One thing that people outside of the Redlands may not know is that the LGA only has one public aquatic centre with an Olympic-sized pool, the Cleveland Aquatic Centre. But even with that, many locals have reported feeling the need to travel to other LGAs such as Logan to enjoy their swimming facilities due to the poor state of the Cleveland Centre. Concerns over the state of the centre go back almost 10 years and include reports of mould, accessibility issues, and incomplete maintenance and upgrades. The centre is now banned from hosting competitive swimming and school events after being deemed unsafe for diving in July of last year, so swimming carnivals must be held outside of the Redlands. It's also drawn criticism after a popular slide into the children's pool was removed in May of 2024 and has not been replaced since. Mayor Joss Mitchell has said that she would like to see the pool redeveloped to suit the current needs of the community through a public-private partnership. This particular issue made it into the update this week as a major media outlet shared correspondence from the council during the week admitting that while the centre was operational and fit for purpose, it was showing some general wear and cleanliness issues. But there's a line in the article I'd like to question. It seems they're trying to make a connection that doesn't exist, but I'll save that for the My 2 Cents segment, as my own analyses and evaluations don't really belong here in the updates. To something potentially more positive for the Redlands, Mayor Joss Mitchell has met with delegates from the International Canoe Federation, or ICF, and Paddle Australia to discuss how the Redlands can secure the best possible legacy from the proposed Redland Whitewater Centre. Along with ways to encourage more use of the centre in the lead up to and beyond the Games, specific strategies were discussed. But one thing that could be a game changer for the Redlands is discussion that was had around the inaugural 2030 World Paddle Games, which will be an event that brings all 10 paddle groups overseen by the ICF together. With the Whitewater Centre due to be completed in 2030, combined with the ocean and natural waterways in the surrounding area, Paddle Australia has expressed excitement over the possibility of the Redlands being part of their bid to host the world-first event. Of course, that would put even more pressure on the state government to ensure that facilities are completed on schedule. Over to Ipswich, and one major development is that the massive grid-scale battery in the Swanbank Energy Precinct is now able to operate at full capacity. The battery can absorb excess energy when supply is high and dispatch power back into the grid within seconds when it's needed, outputting 250 megawatts for 2 hours, enough to power around 355,000 homes. And in something quite rare for Australian government projects these days, it's being delivered under budget, which is good news considering the state's current economic situation. A bit of a local one for the Ipswich suburb of Goodna. After ex-tropical cyclone Alfred last year, part of the 6-metre high embankment along Mary Street gave way, sending soil and debris into a neighbouring property. The collapse also damaged the old stormwater chute, put the pedestrian stairs at risk, and added pressure to the road that locals use to access their homes. Work began in February last year, initially aimed at managing stormwater runoff, but then being expanded to transform the site to stabilise the embankment, add better drainage, and avoid any recurring issues. It's now nearing completion and expected to be done in March, weather permitting. Now to Moreton Bay, where they had a prosperous 2025. By the end of last year, the economy had reached almost $25 billion in gross regional product, added more than $830 million to their economy over the 12 months, and created 6,500 new local jobs, putting it 1 year ahead of where the city was projected to be in its economic strategy 2020 to 2041. Key areas that have performed well include advanced manufacturing, food and agribusiness, tourism, innovation, skills development, and international engagement. One innovation from Moreton Bay that's recently been recognised with an industry award is a project by infrastructure company Fulton Hogan in partnership with Moreton Bay City Council. It takes old tyres and recycled road to create new roads, with the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions on traditional road building methods. The innovative approach takes crumb rubber and mixes it with up to 30% recycled asphalt. In 2024 and 25, 82 streets across Moreton Bay were resurfaced using the technology, during which almost 29,000 end-of-life tyres were recycled back into the roads, and over 500,000 kilograms of CO2 emissions were saved. The final update for Moreton Bay is that construction has started on 58 new social homes in Moreton Bay. The mix of 1- and 2-bedroom homes are designed for older Queenslanders looking to downsize, freeing up larger social homes for families. Half of the homes are designed with accessibility and ease of living in mind, with wider hallways, step-free access, safer bathrooms, and flexible layouts that support older Queenslanders and people with mobility needs. This has been an absolutely massive update, but there's still a heap more updates I could have included. So I've decided that this will be the week to launch a second channel to supplement the Brisbane Channel. It will feature short, bite-sized updates. Some will be completely new updates that didn't make it into the full weekly updates videos here on the Brisbane Channel. Others will be shorter clips taken from long-form videos themselves. The channel is called the Brisbane Channel Clips. Feel free to head over there and subscribe as well, and between the two channels there should be plenty to keep you up to date on all things Greater Brisbane, both in long and short form. For this week's My 2 Cents segment, a quick thought on how the story about the Cleveland Aquatic Centre has been framed, because one line in particular really stood out to me. The article from a major media outlet says that calls for the Cleveland pool to be upgraded have clashed with plans for a $100 million whitewater venue for the 2032 Olympics. That sounds like a pretty serious claim. It suggests there's a conflict, that fixing the pool and building the whitewater venue are somehow competing priorities. But when you stop and actually unpack it, the article never explains how they clash. The Cleveland Aquatic Centre is a council-owned, council-maintained facility. Its condition, cleanliness, safety standards and upgrades sit squarely with Redlands City Council and its operator Belgravia Leisure. The whitewater venue, on the other hand, is a state-driven Olympic project. It's being funded and delivered by the Queensland Government, with Council providing land and cooperation, not $100 million from its own budget. There's no evidence in the article that money meant for Cleveland was diverted to the Whitewater project. No suggestion that Council delayed upgrades because of it. No statement from Council saying one project prevented the other from happening. So what does clashed actually even mean here? What that line really does is place two very different things side by side, a deteriorating everyday community pool and a big flashy Olympic project with a huge price tag. And it invites the reader to draw their own conclusion that one is being neglected because the other is being prioritized. That's a powerful emotional contrast, but it's not the same thing as a factual link. And this is where I think the reporting falls short. There's nothing wrong with comparing priorities. There's nothing wrong with asking whether Olympic spending aligns with everyday community needs. Those are legitimate questions. But if you're going to imply a conflict, if you're going to say these things clash, then it's on the journalist to clearly explain how and on what basis. Otherwise, you're not adding information, you're adding implication. The risk with that kind of framing is that it muddies who is accountable for what. It blurs the line between what council controls and what the state controls, and it nudges frustration in a direction that may not actually match the decision-making reality. I think we can and should be angry about a decade of unresolved maintenance issues at a major public facility. I think residents are justified in feeling frustrated that school carnivals can't be held locally, that accessibility issues linger, that basic amenity standards have slipped. But we don't need a loose or implied Olympics comparison to make that case stronger. If anything, it weakens it. Good reporting should help people understand who is responsible for what and why problems persist, not leave readers filling in the gaps with outrage that may not be grounded in how these projects actually work. That's my 2 cents. If I don't have any bloopers to put in, then you'll probably see me sitting here awkwardly as the channel members scroll up over here, and I wait for the recommended video to pop up on this side so that you can know what to watch next. But see ya. All right, that'll do it.